very existence, was about to walk through the great doors at the end of the hall. Geoffrey, Count of Anjou, whom men called Plantagenet, on account of the broom flower he customarily wore in his hat. Really, though, she thought resentfully, Louis could hardly blame her for what she had done. It was he, or rather the churchman who dominated his life, who had condemned her to live out her miserable existence as an exile in this forbidding northern kingdom with its grey skies and dour people, and to follow a suffocating, almost monastic regime, cloistered from the world with only her ladies for company. For 14 long years now, her life had been mostly barren of excitement and pleasure, and it was only in a few stolen moments that she had briefly known another existence, with Macabrou, with Geoffrey, and, later, with Raymond. Sweet sins that must never be disclosed outside the confessional, and certainly not to Louis, her husband. She was his queen, and Geoffrey his vassal, and both had betrayed their sacred oaths. Thus ran the queen's tumultuous thoughts as she sat with the king on their high thrones, waiting for Geoffrey and his son Henry to arrive, so that Louis could exchange with them the kiss of peace and receive Henry's formal homage. The war was thus to be neatly concluded, except there could be no neat conclusion to Eleanor's inner turmoil, for this was to be the first time she had set eyes on Geoffrey since that blissful, sinful autumn in Poitou 5 years before. It had not been love, and it had not lasted, but she had never been able to erase from her mind the erotic memory of herself and Geoffrey coupling gloriously between silken sheets, the candlelight a golden glow on their entwined bodies. Their coming together had been a revelation after the fumbling embarrassment of the marriage bed and the crude awakening afforded her by Macabrou. She had never dreamed that a man could give her such prolonged pleasure. It had surged again and again until she cried out with the joy of it, and it had made her aware, as never before, what was lacking in her union with Louis. Yet she had forced herself to forget, because Louis must never know. One suspected betrayal was enough, and that had hurt him so deeply his heart could never be mended. Things had not been the same between them since, and all she was praying for now was the best way out of the ruins of their marriage. And now Geoffrey was in Paris, in this very palace, and she was terrified in case either of them unwittingly gave Louis or anyone else, the all-seeing Abbot Bernard in particular, cause to wonder what had passed between them. In France, they did terrible things to queens who were found guilty of adultery. Who had not heard the dreadful old tale of Brunhilde, the wife of King Clotaire, who had been falsely accused of infidelity and murder, and torn to death by wild horses tethered to her hair, hands, and feet? Eleanor shuddered whenever she thought of it. Would Louis be so merciless if he found out that she had betrayed him? She did not think so, but neither did she want to put him to the test. He must never, ever know that she had lain with Geoffrey. Even so, fearful though she was, she could not but remember how it had been between them, and how wondrously she had been awakened to the pleasures of love. No, don't think of it, she admonished herself. That way lies the danger of exposure. She even began to wonder if that wondrous pleasure had been worth the risk. The trumpets were sounding. They were coming now. At any moment Geoffrey would walk through the great door. And there he was, tall, flame-haired and intense, strength and purpose in his chiselled features, controlled vitality in his long stride. He had not changed. He was advancing toward the dais, his eyes fixed on Louis. He did not look her way. She forced herself to lift her chin and stare ahead. Virtuous ladies kept custody of their eyes. Grand-mère Dangereuse had counselled her long ago, but Dangereuse herself had been no saint, and in her time used her eyes to very good effect, to snare Eleanor's grandfather, the lusty troubadour Duke of Aquitaine. Eleanor had learned very early in life that women could wield a strange power over men, even as she did over Louis, although, God help them both, it had never been sufficient to stir his suppressed and shrinking little member to action.